Next, we have our public hearing. Our first item is the general plan amendment, rezone development plan, and environmental assessment for the development of a 38-unit gated apartment complex located on the east side of Tharp Road, approximately 580 feet south of Butte House Road. We have Mr. Rodriguez with the staff report tonight.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Arnoldo Rodriguez, Development Services Department. The item before you is a request, or it's 3 different entitlements, all discretionary actions this evening. The first one is a general plan amendment to amend the existing general plan land use for the property. It's a proposal to rezone the property, which is about 4.68 acres, and it's also a development plan to facilitate the development of 38 multiple family residential units. So this would be an apartment complex. From speaking with the applicant, his target audience is seniors. However, it is not age restricted in the form of a covenant. Just in terms of background, this project was initially considered by the Planning Commission on October the 11th of last year. Or prior to the City Council meeting, we heard from an adjacent property owner. He expressed a handful of concerns. We went back with the applicant, with the adjacent property owner. We resolved those issues, and this project was subsequently considered by the Planning Commission at their February 28th meeting about a month or so ago. The Planning Commission did recommend approval, subject to the compliance as outlined in the City Council's report. So again, the request this evening is to amend the city's general plan from the community commercial land use designation to the residential, to rezone the property from the C2 to the R3, and then also again for 38 dwelling units. When Dr. Choller initially submitted this project to the city, it called for 41 units. However, due to the negotiations, the applicant's been required to modify his proposal, and that reduced it from 41 units to 38. So the application before the council this evening is for 38 units. The subject site itself, it's located on the east side of Tharp, south of Butte House, immediately south of North Market, just to the north of the AT&T complex there. Immediately to the north, obviously, is commercial. To the east is commercial. And then there is the one remaining house that remains there, which is in good condition, and immediately across the street is a harder property. In terms of history, the property itself in terms of land use entitlements has a relatively long history. It goes back all the way to 2007, when the City Council at that time did approve a rezoning from the R3 to C2. So Dr. Choller is proposing to go back to exactly what it was about 10 years ago. And at the time, there was an approval for a roughly 74,000 square foot gym. That gym has obviously not been developed. And since then, he had requested for multiple extensions. The permit on that expired in 2013. That's simply a proposed zoning change again from the C2 to the R3, which would allow the apartment complex. This was the original proposal, which again was for 41 units. The site plan itself is actually turned 90 degrees to the right, so north, and I apologize for this, but it was the only real good way of fitting it on the map. So north is towards me, rather than the traditional facing to the north. So Tharp Avenue here, or Tharp Road, is here, and this is the shopping center, and that's the parking lot for North Market. So again, I apologize, but that was the best way to lay it out. When the applicant first came in, he did have 2 access points, one of them being through the North Shopping Center parking lot, which is here in purple, and then Tharp Road. There's a pedestrian access recorded easement right here to the existing Bel-Air Shopping Center. If you physically go out to the site, there's a block wall. However, you can tell where it's designed to accommodate for it. So as part of this project, they would be proposing pedestrian access through that wall. There is a recorded covenant or easement on the property, which allows for that. Since this project was initially considered by the Planning Commission to the more recent action by the Planning Commission, the primary changes occurred on the northern boundary, and one of them being the elimination of that access point and a slight modification in this general area. This is the new site plan, same orientation. So again, north here, it's rotated 90 degrees to the right, and right here you can tell that there's that the vehicle access point is no longer provided. However, there continues to be a pedestrian gate, which is about right here. I apologize, it looks like the pointer just it's dying or it died. And then obviously we would still have the pedestrian access point here to the east. So where the building was, so where the access point was initially located, there is now a building there. And then with that said, there was a slight modification in this area right here. That modification was required to allow truck parking or truck access to North Market. That was a private agreement between Dr. Toller and the owners of North Market. In terms of the design of the buildings, they're going to have tile roofs with stucco sides, earth tone colors. The apartment complex itself is comprised of both single-story and multi-story buildings. This is an example of a two-story building. We are going to require, or staff is proposing, a 6-foot masonry block wall along Tharp Avenue behind the landscaping, and then it would also have a block wall along the northern property line separating Dr. Toller's property and the North Market Shopping Center. And then we would also require a block wall along the southern property line adjacent to the AT&T complex. This was the original health club that was initially approved. Again, it was 74,000 square feet, and this is simply for illustrative purposes. And then again, the project site. So a couple of specific conditions that staff wanted to identify or highlight. Staff is recommending, thank you, Darren. So staff is recommending that the applicant record a covenant, which is an agreement that's going to run on title with the property. And that covenant would specifically outline the right to farm. There is farming directly across the street. It obviously happens only sometimes, not all the times, but we simply want to be certain that whoever buys this property acknowledges that there is a potential to have farming activity right across the street. We also want them to acknowledge that they are proximate to an industrial area. So again, the site is currently zoned commercial, but however, there are light industrial uses around it. And at the same time, there is a possibility of having conflicts in terms of lifestyles between light industrial and residential. And we simply want to be sure that we're acknowledging that because, again, the light industrial, it's there, it's already planned for it, and they're not changing the land use, rather the residential project is. And then also, we also want to make sure that the property owner acknowledges that there is retail around it and that there could potentially be some discomfort by future tenants because they're adjacent to it. For example, there's deliveries in the middle of the night or early in the morning. We simply want them to acknowledge that. There is one other item that we've been speaking with Dr. Troller about, and that's a community facilities district item. This, the city back in 2017 commissioned a community facilities district study. That condition resulted in some proposed language in terms of the approximate cost to provide community services in terms of ongoing fire, parks, and police services. That study came back. Staff recommended that this council approve a $424 assessment per year per unit for single-family homes. However, a reduced rate of $310 per year per unit in perpetuity per multiple family residential. Staff is proposing that this condition be incorporated into this project. With that being said, staff did outline a CFD. However, we also provided a couple of options. And also do want to highlight that city staff has placed this condition on 6 single-family residential developments in the city. This happens to be the first project that's multiple family rather than single family where staff is proposing that this condition be incorporated. With that said, it also happens to be the first one that the council's considered since that CFD study was completed back in June of 2017. So the condition itself, and I apologize that it's quite lengthy, but the underlying portion is the area that I want to highlight. So it does articulate a couple of scenarios. One of them is that the applicant would join the existing community facilities district, option 1. So option 2, that the developer could, by payment of cash in an amount agreed to by the city, to help secure the funding mechanism acceptable to the city for ongoing cost. And then the third option, it's kind of wide open. It simply says, or by some other combination of those mechanisms. So in other words, the applicant does have some options. Dr. Toller did submit a letter stressing his desire to delete this condition. In this condition, he specifically identified the CFD, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I'm presuming that that rather than eliminating the CFD condition, he's probably hoping that the condition be deleted altogether, but I did want to identify that. We considered his letter and his staff's position that the conditions remain exactly as is with no modifications to any of the conditions, but specifically that one. So again, staff's recommendation this evening is to keep the condition as written, which is $310 per unit per year, which equates to slightly less than $12,000 per year in perpetuity. So with that being said, staff did prepare an environmental assessment. It resulted in a mitigated negative declaration, and we did incorporate mitigation measures, which are outlined in the staff report. So this evening, staff is recommending that the council adopt the environmental assessment, approve the general plan amendment, approve the development plan, and also introducing an ordinance to rezone the property and waive the first hearing. The rezone application today, if staff were, or if the council were to take action this evening, the second reading of the rezone application would occur the first meeting of May rather than the first meeting in April, or rather than the meetings in April. So that concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you. Bring it back to council for any questions for staff at this time. No?
Through the mayor.
Yeah.
Arnaldo, we have a big project going on down on Lincoln Road. How many units is going to be going in there when they finally get going? Lincoln and Garden?
The apartment complex that was approved for Lincoln, it's 172 units, and this condition was not placed on that apartment complex.
Oh, it's not placed on that one?
It is not placed on it because we had not commissioned the study, so we did not have a dollar value to place on it.
Okay. Thank you.
Through the mayor.
Yeah.
Just for clarification, that's an apartment complex, not individual units, much like what is designed for this project here. Am I correct?
Correct. That's more of a traditional apartment complex.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Any other questions? No? Okay. So at this time, I'll go ahead and open this to public on this agenda item. If there's any members of the public that would like to address the council on this issue, go ahead and step up to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Huh? Yeah, there's movement.
I'm Gary Laughlin, Laughlin Spence Civil Engineers, 1008 Live Oak Boulevard, Yuba City, and our firm prepared the development plan for this project. Arnaldo gave a very good review of it, and I'm hopeful that the council can support this project. The one issue, the $310 per unit, I kind of looked at it. Dr. Toller had submitted a letter to you. The fees on this project, the permit fees are about, and this is per unit, are about $5,000. Miscellaneous fees are $400. Fire department $700. Impact fees $16,000. Sewer $6,000. Water cap $8,000. Levy $2,700, gill sizer $700, school fees $4,100, and it adds up to about $44,000 a unit. And the city didn't calculate these figures; I did, based on the city's fee structure. So we were just hopeful of keeping the cost as low as we can to hope this project goes forward. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else like to speak? Nope, if not, go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to council for further discussion or motion.
Through the mayor.
Yes.
You know, over the course of time, this piece of property has come before this council on a prior design project in which we looked at and tried to reduce fees for Dr. Toller to be able to make that project occur. And that was a health club. That didn't happen. He obviously has looked back and tried to reevaluate where he's at with this and trying to make this project move forward in some other design, has come up with the current use. I commend him for that. But also the fees that we look at, and Mr. Lofton, I appreciate your input, but the fees we look at for the city of Yuba City are minimal, truly minimal. All of the other fees that you mentioned, besides hooking to sewer and water, are fees outside the city. And we have no control over those. But we do have to make sure that we're able to provide police and fire protection and any other services to that complex over a course of time. And that's what the fee has been established for. So with that, I'm supportive of this project, but I'm also supportive of the CFD fees that are attached to it.
Thank you. Any other comments, motion?
If you don't mind.
Nope.
Just really quickly, completely agree with Councilmember Buckland on his thoughts on this. I am supportive of the project. I do appreciate the tremendous amount of effort that's gone into the planning. I am not supportive of extra fees unless they're necessary. And I know we've done the math, and it's my understanding and belief that had this not be charged in the future, that it's not sustainable, because the impact to the city and the fees and the things, the expense that the city incurs to support police and fire and the other things that are covered by the CFD would not be a sustainable proposition. $310 is a lot of money to a lot of people, and I'm sympathetic to that. However, the cost of doing business is expensive, so I do support it as well.
Yeah.
Through the mayor.
Yeah.
We have members of our community in the region that continually call us out for not collecting the appropriate fees to cover the costs. When we were working on water rates, that was one of the things that actually surprised me, that we were not collecting enough to cover the capital investment of the things that we needed to do. And this is a couple years ago. And while we were trying to not raise rates, and people were complaining about raising rates, they were also complaining exact same time, how come you didn't collect enough in the first place? Well, the drought changed a lot of the numbers on us in the implementation of the state. So the problem I have is that people don't want us to charge fees, but then they get upset with us for not charging the appropriate and enough fees to cover the costs, which technically, by law, we are required to, is to collect no more than it is necessary to maintain the services at a level that the community demands. And that is what we attempt to do with our fees, our yearly or annual fees, is to charge no more than absolutely necessary. And we have gone through many different issues trying to ensure that we do not charge more than is absolutely necessary, at least that I know of here in Yuba City over the last 3.5 years. So while I don't like it, we have to find ways to pay for the firemen and pay for the policemen and some of their services. So this is it's a necessary thing for those services and for us to comply with your demands of service.
Okay. Any other comments? No? And I concur with the previous comments as far as we don't like it, but it is part of providing the services in our areas as we continue to develop and bring in business. So, and I've been a part of that planning commission since 2000. 2006 is when I came to the city. So I've seen that area grow. I've seen it go through various zonings. So it's just something part of the business that we have to look at. And although we hate charging them, it is something that is required for us to provide those appropriate services for the community. So with that being said, I'm also in favor of moving forward with it.
Through the mayor. You know, again, I'm excited that Dr. Toller has brought this project forward. I think it's a great use for that property. It's a great use for Yuba City. It's a great addition to our community. And much like a project that he was involved in over on Richland Road years ago, I think this is a quality project. And I would move staff's recommendations A through D on this project.
I will second that with one last comment. This is one of the good things that we're doing, the live, work, shop, and play. Instead of moving all of the living outside of the core areas where the shopping and stuff is, putting locations there where actually seniors can, and that don't want to drive or something, can easily get to locations, or just people that are sick and tired of having a car, they can do whatever they want on that. And, you know, in the areas where it's appropriate in Yuba City, allowing and encouraging landowners to develop housing that does not necessarily need driving personal vehicles all the time to where you want to go, but making it where they have a choice of being able to just walk a short distance. So we encourage that.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? All right, motion approved.